competitors have also come and gone too. So I think there's enough room for the ones that do a good job. And the consumer is the one that decides if we're doing a good job or not, because they're going to buy our products and keep us in business.
You're listening to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, a podcast discussing the latest trends and technologies in the food and supplements industries, brought to you by Trustwell, featuring conversations with regulatory experts, quality and safety champions, and thought leaders across the industry. I'm your host, Lydia Adams, VP of Marketing at Trustwell. If you're loving the conversation, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to the end of the episode where you'll hear our guests tell us their key food industry predictions for 2025. All right, let's jump right in. On today's episode of Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, we're welcoming Danny O'Malley, president and founder of Before the Butcher. Danny is a recognized leader in the plant-based space, known for bridging the gap between innovation and inclusivity. His company's latest focus on convenience, protein-forward snacks highlights the changing face of plant-based eating. From market adaptation to food tech advancements, Danny brings a grounded, forward-looking perspective to the evolving food industry. We're so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Danny.
Well, thank you, Lydia. Appreciate it. And I look forward to having a chat about what I do and what interests the public overall.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you. So before we kind of get into, the meat of the topic, if you don't mind just kind of talking about how you got to this point in your career and really what inspired you to start Before the Butcher.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a singular thing, but I can take you back a little bit. I spent most of my career in the food service industry between distribution and restaurants and manufacturing. And I was working for a large food service distributor, Corporation International, and was just kind of feeling like I was at the end of the road and looking for something that was more me, I guess that's the best way to put it, and looking for a little more independence. And I had an opportunity to work for who is our competitor today, Beyond Meat. And I worked there for a few years in the early days. So this is 10, 11 years ago, where most people didn't know, much about plant-based meats and what we were doing. A lot of people didn't care, honestly. It was the early days where we spent most of our time actually just educating people and trying to get them to understand what the purpose was, why we were doing it. And, and a lot of that had to do with the technology behind making these type of products, which is actually really interesting, because when you're taking the foundation, which is plants, and creating a meat-like texture that's similar to animal-based protein, it's not a simple thing to do, right? There are some, techniques and complications and challenges along the way, and we continue to see that in the industry. So I spent a few years with Beyond, and during that time, I really thought that I could go out and do it myself. A lot of people think about it. I decided to do it. And after about 2.5 years, I left Beyond and I started Before the Butcher. And I didn't realize at that time how challenging it is to start a business, especially a business that really needed to be rooted out. This isn't, something like, and nothing against other industries, but there's a lot of tech in our food, meaning it's a bit complicated, and we're always looking to improve things and make things better. So I was fortunate enough to put together a really good team, and we just went out there and did it. And I never thought about the challenges ahead of me. I just thought about what I was doing while I was doing it. And now I reflect back, because people ask me all the time, and they just, they would ask, hey, what if you failed? And kind of similar to a lot of entrepreneurs, I didn't really think about that. I didn't think that was really a possibility. I just didn't think I was going to fail. And fortunately, now almost 8 years later, we're still in business and chugging away and picking up steam as we move forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great founder story. That's awesome. And so how has your perspective really changed on plant-based foods since you started this company?
Being able to put together a product, like I said, from plants and mimic animal protein is not a simple thing. Though we started with the simplest products, if that made sense, because we needed to move forward. and put some products out in the market. And I think we started with 7 products, which is a lot for a startup. And we had crumbles, and we had chunks, like chicken chunks and beef tips and pulled pork and Italian crumble and chorizo and a regular beef like crumble. That was our start. And I don't want to say they are simple products, but they are simpler than some of the other products that are out in the market today, especially products that are mimicking whole meat or whole cut meats or whole muscle meats, which is really quite challenging. And even today, we made, we have a pepperoni now, which was probably the most challenging product we had up until the one I'm going to talk about. But the pepperoni was a year and a half plus in R&D, and we're a smaller company, so we actually move fairly quickly. Generally speaking, we move generally fairly quickly because there's not a lot of layers to get through. But that was 64 versions and over a year and a half in R&D to get that one to market. Today, as you introduced at the beginning, we're working on snack style items, and we've got a quote unquote meat stick, and we call it the butcher stick. It's we have a pepperoni style that's already been developed, and we're in a process of developing a teriyaki style. And these are probably the coolest products we've ever made. I mean, these are really, and this is grab and go. So, you can imagine seeing this about anywhere you go up to a cash register, because almost all cash registers have things that you can grab and go. And a lot of time it's snacks, it's sweets, it's salty, it's savory. And we would fit right in that category. And it's a hot category on the meat side of the business as well. So we're excited about that.
Looking to improve your supply chain? At Trustwell, we've been connecting the dots between the food industry and data for over 40 years to give you more control and visibility across the full supply chain. Our comprehensive food logic platform and our new Genesis Foods set a new standard for compliance, transparency, and quality across the food industry. Request a demo today. The link is in the show notes, or visit us at trustwell.com. Absolutely. I was going to ask you kind of what drove you guys to go into the snacks specifically.
Well, I'll tell you, after COVID, we kind of pulled back from retail, because retail is it's a very, very tough market, and it's difficult to make money in retail. And a lot of our business is done in food service, industrial, private label, things like that, in retail as well. But, we can manage it better when it's private label than when it's our own brand. And I've been looking at what I think is one of the best opportunities to jump back into retail and make another go at it, in addition to our other business. And, I for years I said, boy, it would be really cool to have a meat-like stick out there that's actually 100% plant-based. And so we've been kind of tinkering around, I guess is the word, with this for a couple of years now. And we just we couldn't get our own technology up to speed enough to be able to put this together. And we needed a little help. And we were able to get some help by one of our R&D partners to help us develop this product. And it's really cool. It's actually made from, the base is sunflower protein. So it's a new type of protein in the plant-based world as well. You don't see that out there very much. So it's a really cool product. And it's addictive. I'm telling you, I will have one, and then I'll have another, and then I'll give it, I like to give it to meat eaters, because they're the true tail in this, because for us to really expand and grow as much as we want, it's not going to be just vegans and vegetarians. Though vegans and vegetarians enjoy our products, they're really geared toward meat eaters and meat eaters that are looking for, maybe a little healthier option, or just say, today or once or twice a week, I'm just not going to eat meat, but yeah, man, I really love it. So is there something out there? And we are that something, and it's really exciting to be able to produce something like that. I can't wait. We're going to go into full production in late September, October, and then we'll be pushing it out in the market, probably, online first, because that's the easy grab and go online. Everybody orders online through Amazon or something like that, but we'll be in the stores, and you'll see us hit it pretty hard.
No, that's fantastic. I can't wait to try it. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I wanted to talk about too is how you reach you have that core of vegetarians that, of course they're going to be grabbing this, but then there's also the segment of overall consumers, meat eaters, that are just looking for that healthy option and they're like just trying to add the plant-based. And so how do you, market to them? How do you speak to that audience?
Well, as I said earlier, it was a challenge when I started almost 11 years ago. My time was spent more talking and educating than selling back then. It's a little different today because people know what this is. Now, if they choose not to eat it or this just isn't their thing, then it isn't their thing. But I'll tell you, 8 out of 10 people have interest in it and they want to try it and they want to see. It doesn't mean they'll buy it. It doesn't mean they'll go back, but they do want to try it. And it's the education part is not so difficult anymore because most people know about plant-based meats like we make. As the generations change, we've still got a lot of boomers out there, and boomers they're the ones that we had to educate, and then you've got your X gen, but the millennials are the ones that jumped on board very quickly. They were concerned about the environment, maybe not as much concerned about their own personal health at the time, but more concerned about the environment. I think that's changing because they're getting a little older too, and they've got kids. As we work our way down, millennials and down to the Z Gen basically kind of grew up with this. This is what they know. And then I guess there's alpha and now beta. I don't know what's out there anymore, but it's great. It's crazy. What's really interesting is the millennials are having babies, right? And they're having kids now. And those kids grow up already knowing about this. So we've had our challenges in our industry, like any industry. It got big, kind of exploded, with a lot of PR marketing, and then it kind of imploded a little bit. And now going forward, what I see is just kind of natural grassroots growth where people know about these products. They're excited to see new items come into the market and they're willing to go out and try it. And as long as we keep front forward with the aspects behind these products, which generally all of us are doing the same thing. Our missions and visions are very, very similar. And it's wrapped around three things. It's wrapped around our own personal health, the health of the planet, and obviously health of the animals as well. And so you put those three aspects together, and most people, in fact, really all people that enjoy these type of products are focused more or less on one or more of those aspects. And that is appreciated by our consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of going back to your history, your career before this, being in the food industry, being dedicated to food safety, how does that all come together in your company now, and then also layering in, the plant-based and kind of the changing expectations?
Well, I'm going to take you way back because I grew up in Wisconsin, and from a family of six brothers and sisters, or seven of us. So we sit down at the table. There's nine of us, and it was meat and potatoes. That's what I knew. And so I ended up moving out to Santa Barbara, of all places, from Milwaukee to Santa Barbara. Tough move, I'll tell you. When I was still a teenager, and I started learning things. About really about produce. I mean, I don't think I knew what an avocado was at the time, or I certainly didn't know what an artichoke was. And so, over time, I just kind of naturally gravitated. Southern California is a great place to be when you're talking about fresh produce. Just kind of naturally gravitated toward eating healthier myself. And then realizing along the way, as I moved through my career in food service, that there were a lot of options that are available now. And back then, when I was growing up, they weren't available in the Midwest. So the accessibility, because of the of transport and moving things quicker and more efficiently through the states, if we're talking just about the United States, but also internationally as well, we have an opportunity to have fresh fruit and fresh produce almost anywhere we are. And I didn't, as a kid growing up, I didn't pay that much attention to it, but I could tell you, we didn't have the variety other than during the summer because, we were growing corn right out basically in the backyard, and other produce and so on and so forth. So moving forward, I think when we talk about being able to access these type of products and giving an opportunity for people to eat healthier, that opportunity is right in front of you every single day. Because the accessibility for fruits and vegetables and other healthier products is much better today than it was 30 or 40 years ago, or maybe even 20 years ago. So I think then as we move forward, we look at how we can make even our products that we make better, right? And we're always looking at that. I mean, recently in the past year, we removed all of our natural caramel coloring. Now, this caramel coloring was all natural. It was even approved at Whole Foods level, but we knew we could go do better. So now we actually use natural apple juice to color our products, because as you know, if you cut an apple and leave it out, you'll see it turn brown. Well, we're using that as part of what we do to improve our products and make them better for the consumer and healthier.
Wow, no, that's amazing. And it is very interesting to see that shift kind of, from generations, as you said, of, this is the food available to you. And you did speak a little bit about kind of the e-commerce piece of this, of, having this out there to buy online. How has that really helped you guys kind of scale your business?
Well, not a lot. And I'll tell you why. It's going to change. Not a lot, because it's still difficult to ship frozen products. It's very expensive to pack and ship frozen products. And our products are all, fresh frozen. And that extends the longevity of the product when it gets to the operator or the retailer. And going forward, and as I said, that's going to change. That's going to change with our butcher stick, because that one, the first thing I'm going to do is hit e-commerce, and the accessibility of a meat-like stick, and sending a couple of those is pretty simple. We're going to throw it in an envelope and it's going to go, right? It's got a 12-month shelf life and it's shelf stable. So I'm excited about it, because the accessibility of our products will become really easy for the consumer. The consumer won't have an excuse for not being able to get our products if they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that does kind of speak to that shift over to snacking. So it's definitely exciting. So, and you also talked a little bit about kind of the early days where this wasn't really a thing. People didn't really know about it. And now it is, which is great. But then it also kind of lends itself to a more competitive landscape. Have you guys been experiencing that? And how have you adapted to the massive consumer demand and the pop-ups of additional competitors?
Yeah. Competitors have also come and gone too. So I think there's enough room for the ones that do a good job. That's the best way I can answer that question. And the consumer is the one that decides if we're doing a good job or not, because they're going to buy our products and keep us in business. So it is interesting, since I started company 8 years ago, and we, products hit the market about 7 years ago, maybe a little bit less, or a little bit more, I should say, to see some of our competitors make products that we started making 7 or 8 years ago, and now they're making it. And so it's, that's part of being in business, especially manufacturing or making an actual product, not just a service, but a product. If you're good at what you do and you do a good job, somebody else is going to come in and try to do the same thing. You don't know how big the industry is, or the business is, or the consumer base is, until you push the limits. And I think in the past few years, we pushed the limits, and now, it got tracked back a little bit, and some of our competitors are no longer our competitors. But every time I go out and do a major trade show, I see somebody else out there trying to do something. Now, it may not be exactly what we're doing, but what's interesting, I think, too, is I see a lot more of the new manufacturers coming in, very specific to a certain type of product, meaning that, hey, we're just doing one thing, we're going to do it really well, And, once we get our wheels turning here, then we'll branch off and start doing other things. I did a little different at that time because I started with six, and within a year and a half, we had like, I think 11 products on the market, which is a lot for a startup. But we've been able to manage that. But what I'm seeing today moving forward, and I think there is a reason for that. I'm going to get to it before you have a chance to answer or ask that question. I think there is a reason for it. And the reason is that consumer has become more sophisticated and has higher expectations for what we do and how we do it. So if you ask me what the most important thing is for our type of products, I'm going to tell you texture. Because if you bite down on something and you expect it to be similar to something you've had before and it's not going to be right for you. We can get the flavors. We can generally get the look. The texture is the most important and vital thing for a plant-based meat to really hit the mark when a consumer's trying it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As a consumer, I can tell you that is on target. Yeah, no, and you kind of mentioned as well before, there's a lot of technology that goes into this, right? And so, how has the technology changed, and how do you see it kind of going into the future, specifically for plant-based proteins?
Well, it's definitely become more sophisticated, and and we'll continue to see that road. And I think one of the reasons for that is now we're creating equipment that's more specific toward what we do and how we do it. Prior to that, we were basically using equipment that's been around for 50, 60 years. Extrusion is what we did. And that's a piece of equipment that's been around for many years for cereals, basically. And so now we're looking at different types of equipment that have been manufactured more specifically for what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. And I think with that, we're going to see more and more products that really come close to mimicking animal-based proteins. And for myself, the easiest way to do that is to make a product that is actually used in a recipe. For instance, like spaghetti bolognese, right? If you're going to cook up some pasta, some pasta sauce or some, a red sauce, and you add in a plant-based crumble, right? It would be very challenging if it's a good crumble with a good texture to even know that you weren't eating meat. Where the biggest challenges come are with the whole muscle meats, where you expect to eat that as it is, like a steak or a chicken breast, or a rib, something like that. You're immediately going to look at these products, and the look of them are getting better, but they're not there. So you're going to look at it right away and say, well, I know that's not a steak. But if you have chicken chunks or beef tips or or steak tips or something like that, and you're mixing it into a pasta or putting it in a sandwich with cheese and lettuce and all that other kind of stuff in there, you might just say, hey, I really can't tell the difference. So it is still easier for us to do applications or products that are used as part of a recipe than it is for them to stand alone as is. Now, where that's changing is that there's a couple of companies out there that are making steaks and chicken breasts that are doing a pretty good job. And our butcher stick, our beef stick, is a standalone product. You're not going to actually you can, but you're going to eat it as is. I laughed a little bit about it because I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were in catering and certain things, and they said they do a lot of charcuterie boards, and I said, well, you got the perfect product here. I mean, you're going to put, if you're going to do a plant-based charcuterie boards, you can put your pickles out there and your marinated onions or peppers and things like that, and then maybe you'll put some plant-based cheese on there. But here, you've got a plant-based sausage. You cut it on a bias and you put it on that plate, and it works. Those are the kind of things that I think the consumer is really going to gravitate to, especially if they're done well.
Yeah, like how can I apply this, and as you said, I mean, even just for someone who is an omnivore or whatever, like just having that option of just, hey, I'm making my meal a little bit healthier today. So or helping, save the planet, all of those things that I think, yeah, I feel like those values are very much infused in the younger generations. I completely agree with that. So no, that's really interesting in terms of the technology and kind of going, speaking about the future. It just feels like the consumer demand is rising and, the technology available is, getting more advanced. So where do you see this industry of plant-based foods really in the next 5, 10 years?
Well, like the rising demand comes from expectations as well for better products, and I think the industry has listened. We're aware of it, and we're doing it. Whether it means we're cleaning up the labels and trying to make sure that you can read the label and understand what's there, or we're creating products with better texture, better flavor, look better, and so on and so forth. Moving forward, it's just going to get better. I mean, it's like any other technology. We're going to figure out ways to make this product better and better, and it's going to integrate in society. I'm not sure if we're 5 years out or 10 years out, but there will be a time where you're not going to think a lot about what's you're eating specifically. You're going to be, you're going to be looking at products right next to each other that's animal based and plant based. We see that today. It's more viable in Europe than it is in the U.S. We seem to be fighting it a little bit here in the U.S., but it's going to be part of the mainstay. And I smile a little bit about Europe because I was there in the fall, and it was the first time that I've been inside of a McDonald's in probably 20 years, because a third of the menu was plant based, and that's just commonplace over there. Burger King was the same way. And people aren't thinking about it the way we're thinking about it here. We think about it too much, honestly, here. They just go in and they say, hey, this is what I like, and this is the way I want to eat. This is the way I eat. I think the challenge, certainly in the US, is that we try to find something wrong with things that are right. And over in Europe, they just accept what's there, knowing that it's something better for them, certainly better for the planet and better for the earth. And we look for reasons why it may not be better. And I think that may be one of the challenges we're going through as a society here in the U.S. And hopefully that will flip, and we'll just kind of move forward and be able to accept it. That's why I hesitate with a timeline, trying to understand where we're going to be in 5 years and 10 years. Look, I know we're going to grow. I don't think that's a question. I think most people in the industry, even outside of the industry, would agree that we'll continue to grow. There's a more natural grassroots movement now because the younger generations are already aware of what we do and are interested in what we do and will purchase and buy and enjoy what we make. So the education part, as I said earlier, is almost gone. Now it's about, hey, are you making something that I like and something that's delicious that I want to eat and eat over and over again? And is it interesting? And I think there's no question we can do that, and we are doing that. So we will continue to see kind of natural growth over the next 5 years. And I think from 5 to 10 years, that may even accelerate, because as the generations change, we're going to have more and more people that are rooted into this because this is what they know. As I said, the education part is kind of gone. Now the younger generations, they know about these products. They talk about it amongst themselves. You've got your peers going back and forth and saying, hey, I want to try that. We don't have to go back to where we were a few years ago with a big, very large campaigns on PR and marketing and social media with influencers that have 30 or 50 million followers that jump on and try it once and then move on to the next product. That's not a healthy way to grow an industry, I don't think. So what we're doing now is better. And I think it's just going to be more steady growth than explosive growth like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think you are absolutely right about kind of the culture. Like it goes back to what you said about, hey, I grew up on meat and potatoes, and it's like we're slowly changing here in the US. Of like, it doesn't have to be that way. There's a lot of options here. So no, that's awesome. So I think just lastly, obviously you've grown a very successful business. what advice would you have for leaders within, manufacturing that are trying to create products, whether it's, plant-based or not, but just they're trying to grow, they're trying to kind of reach those consumer expectations and, what advice would you give those folks?
That's what I would say. Listen, you have to listen to the consumer, because they're going to tell you what they want, and take the time to do the studies and go in and really take it. It's difficult because when you're making a product, you do want to get that product to market as quickly as you can for various different reasons. Because, obviously there's a time where you've got to start, bringing money in rather than all the money going out. And also you get excited about it. I get excited about it. I was like, I can't wait to get this product out so people can try it. But you do have, sometimes you have one shot at that. So you do have to do a good job. Now you can improve. We've improved all of our products since we've started them. The early ones have all changed in certain ways to improve. And that's okay. But the base of the original product that you release needs to be really good. And you'll need to listen to the consumer. The consumer will tell you. They will tell you what they want. And if you listen to them and you do something that they're asking for, you can do really well.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice, I think, for anyone. And then, overall for the food industry, what are some of your predictions for the rest of the year? I mean, what do you think we're going to see coming out, whether that's technology, products? What do you think?
Well, here, especially in the US, I think everybody's a little bit hesitant. We're still a little uneasy. We're not quite sure, what's happening with the economy, where we're going. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of wows out there this year. It's not that we won't see some. I think we will. And whether that's, in plant-based or other parts of the industry, everybody's working forward and toward something. And what you're working forward toward should be better than what you've done before, or what the industry has done before, depending on the industry you're in. A lot of what we do and a lot of what other industries do doesn't just come out, 6 weeks after they start working on it. It takes time. It takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years or more to develop a product and really do the right thing to hit the market with it. So I think we're going to see things that hit the market. I just hope that there isn't hesitancy in releasing these products because, they're not sure about whether or not this is the right time to drop it on the market. I think we just have to keep plugging forward. And like anything else, there's hills and valleys in business, and there's hills and valleys in everything we do in life. So if you're in a valley now, you want to climb back up that hill. If you're on top of that hill, you want to stay up there, right? And figure out what that is for yourself and just keep moving forward. And I think as an industry for ourselves and other industries, I think just keeping positive is really important.
Love it. Love that advice as well. And then lastly, how can listeners find out more about Before the Butcher and stay up to date about your new snack line?
Well, you can follow us on social media at Before the Butcher. And you can go to our website, beforethebutcher.com. And we're always updating and we're always doing exciting things on social media. So follow us.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much, Danny, for joining us. I know this has been really interesting for our audience. And thanks again to our audience for also joining us. And stay tuned for remaining episodes of Food Tech Talk. Thank you for joining us for another bite-sized nugget of Food Tech Talk, supply chain insights from farm to fork. Make sure to subscribe. And if you love the podcast, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Trustwell and request your free demo of our technology platform that connects food formulation, products, nutrition analysis, and compliant labeling with traceability, recall readiness, and supply chain transparency, please visit us at www.trustwell.com and click Get Started or click the link in the show notes to learn more. Thanks for listening.